this Godwin Sunday. Well, it's interesting to know that Japa has now entered the dictionary officially. It has become a word that has been universally accepted. And of course, just to give you a brief of what Japa is all about, Japa simply means it's a Yoruba word that means you're running or you live in a place. Well, that's what it implies. But then it has come to resonate with Nigerians that a lot of Nigerians like to travel out of the country, probably due to economic hardship and all of this, and probably for luxury, for tourism. Nigerians like to travel, and this is where the Japa syndrome has come. But then what's shocking is the fact that the Nigerian Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives has called on the federal government to shift focus from expanding nursing education to addressing the systemic issues driving the mass immigration of nurses, popularly known as the Japa syndrome. The association is concerned over the persistent challenges, noting that as of February 2025, nearly 15,000 nurses, I'll take that again, as of 2025, as of February 2025, nearly 15,000 nurses had left the country in the previous year. The emphasis that increasing nurses student intake without employment plans and structural reforms may worsen the problem. Now, looking at all of this and joining me to talk about the Japa syndrome right now is Bilal Aliyu, who is a public policy analyst. But first, you're welcome to Good Morning, Bilal. All right, so Bilal, good morning. Welcome to Good Morning. All right, so you've heard from the narrative at this point in time where we've tried to give a background to what is happening in the country, and a lot of youths are also not spared in the Japa syndrome. But first, what do you make of the total number of people leaving the country as it stands right now?
Thousands of Nigerians that keep leaving the shores of this country is to look out for greener pastures and other continents of the world at large. With the present economic policies and economic downturn in the country today, it's something which is becoming unbearable, and the last resort for an average Nigerian today is to look at or source out for resources to see how he or she can leave the shores of this country to seek for greater pastures.
All right, so Bila, let's look at the number of people that are leaving the country right now. Of course, this is not just the medical field, it has also spilled around to other fields. Do you think that with the number of out of school, the number of graduates that we are churning out as a country, will the number of professionals leaving the country, will it be in any way affected by the number of people that are leaving the country?
Definitely, it's going to really affect the nation at large, because based on the fact that we are losing talents to other countries. These are people that go out to other countries and help develop their own economies and all. Because the problem of Nigeria today is that we just don't have a proper plan. We don't have, a proper strategy that could enable national development and integration at this point in time. This is the problem that we have. The problem that we have is majorly management. The people frontlining the affairs of governments, don't have the capabilities to see how they can utilize talents to um, improve national development and all. As you can see, foreign countries always outsource talents globally to see how they can utilize them to enable them build their own economies at large. We have the skills and we have the resources here, but the problem there is to be able to make use of these resources and talents, you know, to enable us, translate our strategies into actions. Because as it is today, there is no plan. Like, we haven't had like a census exercise for the past 15 years. We don't have like a formal national, a feasible national database which could enable us plan, you know, for the population, and also, you know, the future at large. It's really critical at this point, because when you want to have like a national strategy or plan nationally, data enables you to like plan effectively. Without an effective data, there is no way that you can, you know, develop transformational strategies and all. So in this case in time, because we are working with obsolete data, and when you look at the National Population Commissions at large, they don't have like some mechanisms or innovations to see how they could like, reach the deficits in population counting and maintaining a national population database, which should be feasible for the government to be able to plan and translate its strategies into actions. So in this case, Nigeria is really losing a lot, because the government has failed to be able to utilize our talents and resources to see how we could develop our own, nation at large. So we are losing talents to our foreign counterparts on a yearly basis, and which is really, really bad for the country at large.
So, Bilal, you're saying that invariably that the number of people that are traveling outside the country, we are losing more talent in that light. Because one would have thought that with the kind of university system that we have here, we can easily retrain people to be able to occupy those vacancies and the lapses won't show. Are you saying that at this point there are no competent ground for us for these talents to be rebuilt and filled, and so that there will be no lapses? Can't there be policies that can mitigate these gaps in such a way that there will be no lapses? Or at all, will these lapses show in our nation development?
The educational system of the country today needs to be in a state of emergency, because at the point where we're getting it wrong is based on the educational system. We don't like have a framework that could enable us, sustain talent, and also, impart knowledge on people that could enable us, solve 21st century at large. Because when you look at the curriculums and the facilitators in most of these schools, you tend to find out that the knowledge that they have is obsolete, because they are based on the budgeting. The educational sector doesn't really have a lot to hold, because these are critical sectors that the government needs to really pay close attention to, because you need to fund the educational sector effectively, and the health sector, because these are two critical sectors that could determine the future of our country at large. Because it's true knowledge that people use to be able to the main essence of like having knowledge is to use it to solve practical problems at large. Well, in this case in time, we are way behind, because when you go to most of the universities and colleges, you tend to find out that the learning materials and laboratories and the classrooms are all in shambles. There is no much research grants, and most of the research that they undergo in the universities and colleges, you tend to find out that these are researchers that like are always finding solutions to obsolete problems, because with the way the world is going at large, education, doesn't really determine about the past, but determine about, you need to make your curriculum very flexible, curriculum that will be able to like address real world problems at large, because the world is moving, it's fast changing, and we're in a point in time whereby innovation takes over everything. So you have to keep in touch with the latest trends in order to enable you to solve real world problems at large. So it's high time that the government come out and design a framework and see how they could translate that strategies into action, and also enable that the educational sector has adequate funding to be able to like carry out its programs, and also balance the sector at large.
All right, Bilal, you agree with me that Nigeria is a very blessed country. We're blessed with natural resources. We're blessed in abundance of other material resources also. Not leaving the fact that Nigerian is so much endowed with practical talents. But then again, the conversation right now is, why are young people, especially professionals, leaving the country? A country that is this blessed. Is it that they are not seeing the potentials of Nigeria, or they are hinging their blames on the negative side of policies of the government? But then help us understand, why would people want to leave the country that is this blessed?
Well, when you look at the rate of people leaving out the country, that speaks a lot that there's a failure of public service, in this case, whereby the people frontlining the affairs of governments are not doing the right thing. They're not doing what they are meant to do. In this case, they've really failed the people, and they have like failed to fulfill the social contracts being signed with them and the masses at large. So in this case, even the minimum wage is nothing to write home about, based on the you know high rate of inflation and economic downturn. And in this case, the government has failed to review or come up with a mechanism that will be able to review the minimum wage and also cost of living at large. So the pain is becoming unbearable for people in this case. Imagine lots of like Nigerians, like millions of Nigerians, feeding daily below $1. It's really crazy at this point. The last resort for them is to go out to look out for greener pastures. The government has really failed the people in terms of utilizing our resources to see how we could like enable national development at large. Our economy today is solely dependent on the oil, and which makes the future look scary at large, because right now like those people are moving into different energy sectors, like when it comes to renewable energy, I know, and also looking at other sectors that could enable us generate revenue, like the mining sector, I know, and agriculture at large. I feel like the oil that we have today has really done more um, harm than good to us as a nation, because before the exploration of oil in the country today, then our economy was solely dependent on agricultural produce, and you could see the people then were able to had access to free education, quality health care. I know, and in that case, people weren't really moving out of the country except for educational purpose. And when the government sponsors them out to go out to foreign countries to seek, they come back to the country to like enable and use the knowledge being acquired to transform the nation at large. But in this case, when you look at the TED Fund, for example, which sponsors Nigerian lecturers in tertiary institutions to go out to, acquire knowledge at large, they don't really come back, because the contract there is to go out to seek knowledge and come back to like develop your own country. They stay back over there to like see how they could seek greener pastures. So in this case, it's more of as a result of failure of public service because the people frontlining the affairs of government don't have any form of strategic directions for this country at large. These are the major reasons why we're facing these things right now and why other foreign countries are taking advantage of us, exploiting our own talents, by offering them attractive package and benefits. So it's really crazy at this point in time. We can't just be losing our own talents, going overseas to build other economies of our foreign counterparts. It's really crazy at this point in time. The government needs to like come up, sit up to see how they can, find solutions to address these problems at large.
All right, so Bilal, let's talk in terms of this Japa syndrome. Statistics have shown that at least 50 nurses travel out of this country on a weekly basis. Every week, Nigeria loses 50 nurses. Now, on the number keeps rising. That we lose medical doctors, we lose engineers, and we lose a lot of professionals are leaving the shores of Nigeria. And if this continues like this, we don't know if we will still be able to boast of the fact that there are professionals in Nigeria or we have quacks. But let's x-ray these people that are leaving the country. The numbers are rising. Do you think or do you agree with the notion that most people that are leaving the country are because they are lazy? That's why they are leaving the country in search of greener pastures. That's one. Then two, do you agree with the notion that outside the fact that they are being lazy, they don't want to build their home, they don't want to build or contribute to the building and development of Nigeria, that these people also are largely not the sum total of Nigeria, but rather a segment or a fragment, a section of the country that people are traveling. That other part of the country, like for example, we say the north, northern people are not traveling, they are ready to build the country. But meanwhile, the people from the south are traveling. Can this also be the conversation that Nigerians are jackpying? It is not a general syndrome. Can you address these concerns quickly?
Well, the issue of Japa syndrome is a general thing. It's not just only the Southerners. People across all parts of this nation always, you know, Japa on a monthly basis. Every average Nigerian wants to go out to seek, greener pastures in this case. And I'll tell you that Nigerians are not lazy at all. They are not lazy. It's not that they don't want to build their own country. It's that the government hasn't put in place an enabling environment for them to serve the nation. When you look at the medical practitioners that serve in government hospitals and all, we tend to find out that their remunerations, it's nothing to write home about, and also the welfare packages and all. In this case, you know how critical and how sensitive, the medical profession is. You know, it's something whereby you need to, when you go to the government hospitals, you tend to see how the doctors and nurses do treat patients, because you tend to find out that there's a high level of frustration in the sense that they are poorly remunerated, salaries and benefits are being owed. In that case, what do you expect? These are simple human resource logic. For you to actualize efficiency, and effectiveness, you need to be your staff needs to be well remunerated and taken care of in that case, because this will be as a major morale booster for them to be able to discharge their duties effectively without no hindrance. But in the sense whereby people are poorly paid, salaries are being owed, and the economic downturn again, is something crazy at this point. So it's becoming unbearable for them to hold. So in that case, that's why you see them looking out for, every means to see how they could leave the shores of this country to enable them, seek for greener pastures, because every Nigerian will really want to, wants his country to be better, I know, but the government hasn't put in place an enabling environment for people to serve their nation, because a lot of people have put service into this country, and they've not been appreciated or recognized at all in that case. So you need to motivate these people in order for them to contribute to nation building at large.
So if I get you correctly, Bilal, you are saying that people that live in the country is not due to the fact that a lot of them are lazy. That's why they are leaving the country.
Definitely, yes. Yes.
All right. But then again, Bilal, when we talked about this Japa syndrome, of course, it's becoming a menace in the country. You see a friend today, you go back to where you met him yesterday or today, and tomorrow, I beg your pardon, and you realize that he has moved out of the country. And this is not just for a lot of people, a lot of Nigerians are outside the country without knowing the future there looks bleak, it looks blank, it looks empty. It's like a tabula rasa. They don't know what to expect in other countries. And of course, many countries, Nigerians are being kept there in prison. The number of Nigerians that are in prison is increasing. Even in India, we have cases in India, we have cases in the US, we have cases in the UK, and all of these countries. Now, you have said that traveling doesn't mean that they are lazy, they just want a greener pasture. But then, should we be talking about people traveling for greener pasture even at this point in time, knowing fully well that other economies are also having their own challenges? Shouldn't we be talking about rather people stay in the country and develop Nigeria, despite the fact that the government has its own shortcomings? Shouldn't the conversation be along this line, Bilal? Or what are your thoughts or reactions to these thought lines?
For how long will the government be having shortcomings? For how long? How long will it take them to, address these issues? You tend to find out that governments are not really concerned about what the masses feel at large. You get. So in this case, you tend to see people, delve into desperate journeys, because no matter what the risk is, they will still tell you that it's way better than that of Nigeria. Yes, most countries are having some economic, issues. I know some countries are going into recession. Yes, they're going into recession and still coming out of it. Yeah, it's okay for a nation to go into recession. What you just have to do is to balance your, economic policies and review them and realign them, and that's what they are doing, and it's really working fine for them. But in this case, we've been in recession for so long, so many years, and there is no approach, to take in order to, address these issues at large. So you tend to find out that there's a high level of failure in public service. So in this case, it's better than other countries. When you can look at the UK, for example, they had their own downtimes, and they had to look at for ways to review their economic policies and address them, and things are falling back in place. But in this case, there's no any form of response to the economic downturn. I know that's why you still see that Nigerians are, they feel better going out of the countries. And then another thing again is that some people are ignorant, because though there are some kind of like countries that are not advisable to, you know, migrate to. You look at countries like the India, which is somehow like Nigeria, in terms of corruption and failure in public service, and also Indians too are really on the lookout or to seek greener pastures and all. So they are not really well enlightened, but they just have that notion that you know every country outside the shores of this country, as long as it's outside the African continent, there's greener pastures there in that case. And the government hasn't done anything enough to orientate people in these issues. We have the national orientation agencies and all, we have commission for the diaspora, things like that, because as it is, we just have a long way to go. That's just the situation on ground.
All right, Bilal, let's look in terms of most of the professionals that are leaving the country. Majority of them have been placed on scholarship by the Nigerian government. Majority of them have been trained by the Nigerian government, and majority of them have also benefited in one way or the other from the Nigerian government. Now, at this point in time, traveling out of the country, doesn't this seem like a perceived wickedness on the part of professionals that are leaving the country, having benefited a lot? Is it not time to give back to the country over some of the things that they have learned and they've been able to benefit? Is it not time to give back? Should the conversation of leaving the country not be tagged a wickedness, an act of wickedness by benefactors of the Nigerian state?
I wouldn't tag it as wickedness, because when you look at most people being sent, overseas on sponsored scholarships, I know you tend to find out that we've had cases of, beneficiaries of the scholarship awards not being funded. In that case, it tends to lead to low performance in their academics and all. It tends to make them look out for other menial jobs, which takes much of their learning time in order to make ends meet in that sense. So in that case, the Nigerian, this is more of a mutual thing, because it's the most majorly the problem of the government, at large. Because how would you like send, award scholarships and send beneficiaries overseas, living in a foreign man's country, and without, you know, providing them with adequate welfare? It's very it's so unfair. Most times, the allowances, and things like that are being delayed in that case, and which is not really fair enough. So in that case, they would want to come back, like, because even if being sponsored, you know, overseas, and they come back to the country, like, where are the resources? Where are the facilities to enable them impact that knowledge? Because most people do make recommendations to the government, but you know there's no any adequate response to that, because there's no any central platform whereby you can like make recommendations and get adequate feedbacks, you know in case in issues like that. So in that case, it tends to make people become nonchalant, and it kills the drives of people who are willing to serve this nation at large. Because I see it as more like we're sending people out, to acquire, you know, foreign education, and when they come back, you don't listen to their recommendations, to see how you can like improve the nation at large. And sometimes most of this, scholarship schemes are now affront to, embezzle public funds. I know. So that's the reality on ground. I can't hear you, Godwin. I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Godwin. I can't hear you.
All right, so Bilal, I'm trying to find out from you. We've talked about, we looked at, can you hear me now, Bilal?
Yes, I can hear you clearly now.
All right, so
I
we've
can make.
looked at this whole conversation from various angles. Let's talk recommendations right now in terms of what the government can do and what the people can do in order for us to be able to put an end to this brain drain wave that is sweeping the country right now, and also taking away professionals from the country. What do you think? What will your recommendation be to the government right now to be able to ameliorate the situation as it were, even as at yesterday?
First of all, the government needs to be, transparent and accountable when it comes to administering the affairs of like governance and all. Secondly, we need to have strategy plan, a feasible strategic plan, a transformational strategic plan, because a strategy plan, it's more of a blueprint that guides you on transition, from this state, to a better state of development. You get, and when you see the country today, we don't have plans that are being translated into actions. Though sometimes I've seen when the government has come to like design, plans and all, but the problem there is translation into actions, because how will you plan with obsolete data? Because we are still using the data of the 2006 census exercise to make forecasts, and plan for the nation at large. You need adequate data, adequate data makes you, get better decisions, because without adequate data, there's no way you can, that you can plan, because you need to know the amount of people living in the countries, amount of people affected due to issues and all in that case. So these are the situation on ground, because it looks like the government doesn't have any blueprints that can lead us to a transformational, change and all at large. So in that case, we need to have a plan that is feasible and see how we can translate these plans into actions, not just calling out conferences, roundtables, discussions, without implementing them into actions.
So if I get you correctly, you're recommending that the government should improve on its database to be able for them to even know how many people, how many professionals we have in the country, and how many are living part time. Is that what you're recommending?
Yes, definitely. You need plan to make. You need data, adequate data to make uh, better decisions. You get, because at the ease we are using obsolete data to plan for the nation at large. You can't be using the figures from the census exercise done since 2006, and there is no even any form of innovation by the population commission to see how they can like track, you know, new populations at large. They need to come out with innovative ways to see how they can like track the populations on ground in the country today. And in that case, and as I said earlier, there needs to be transparency and accountability, because once the government is being transparent, and accountable for their policies and programs, this will go a long way in terms of reducing the rate of corruptions and all. And also they need to see how they can make the country have an enabling economic environment for investors to come in here to invest, because most of the investors that we have, when you look at the companies like the GSK, which has already popped out from the country and looking out for you know opportunities in neighboring countries like Ghana and all. You get, because what drives the economy is industrializations and production. Because as the East, we are not a producing nation; we are more on consumption. So we need to bring back those multinationals back here to see how they can expand our economy and build industries to create employment and all. So the governments need to be very realistic and come up with solutions to see how they can make the economic environment enabling for investors to come and put in their money, because it wouldn't make sense for any investor to put in money in an economy that is nothing to write home about, because nobody is ready to waste money at large. And in that case, so industrialization is one of the um, feasible means to see how we could address the rate of unemployment. Why are people going out to seek greener pastures? Because there's industrialization, there are industries. There are lots of industries over there looking at for talent, outsourcing talent to come and fill up spaces to enable them develop their economy. But the industries here we have in Nigeria, you can count them. They are very, very few, and we don't have Europeans anymore in this country. Gone are the days when we do have Europeans who come down here to set up industries and all. What you majorly see is the Indians and the Chinese. And funny enough, when you see these Indians and all these Asian guys, they don't come with their money down to the shores of this country. What they do is that they source out loans from from our own banks, local banks. And in that case, instead of still leaving the money into the Nigerian economy, they take it back to their country at large. And when you look at even the way they
Oh,
remunerate, their staffs and all,
all
they don't
right.
pay them about. Yeah.
Yeah, Bilal, I've got the signal that it's time for us to go, but I want to say thank you so much, Bilal, for being a part of Global Morning this morning.
My pleasure, brother. Thank
All
you.
right, so